Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. I'm Hugh McKay, President of the Board of Directors of the City Club. Before we turn to Jim Thome, I would note that we're pleased to have Tom Hamilton here, the voice of the Cleveland Indians for 21 seasons, and he will help us. Tom will help us with the program today. He is already in the Cleveland Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame, is a 5-time winner of the Ohio Sportscaster of the Year Award, and he is on pace for a Cooperstown Hall of Fame broadcasting career himself. The last baseball player to address the City Club was Babe Ruth. On July 17th, 1925, it is fitting that the next baseball player to address the Cleveland City Club is the greatest slugger in the history of the Cleveland Indians. Yay. Jim Thome is 8th on the all-time Major League home run list with 604 homers and counting. He is 8th in Major League Baseball history in walks, and if you read or saw Moneyball, you know that walks are a very good thing, as is his career on-base percentage of .403, which is outstanding. Jim Thome is 26th in Major League Baseball history in RBIs. He's had 12 walk-off home runs. He is the Cleveland Indians' all-time leader in home runs, and he's the Indians' single-season home run leader. He also hit the longest measured home run in Cleveland history, and his career fielding percentage is .994. And in the Sky Dome in Toronto, he hit a home run into the restaurant that upended several salad bowls. So Jim Thome's records and his achievements are prodigious, and they make him objectively one of the greatest ever to play the game. And his achievements are untainted and will not require any asterisks. What he has done on the field is remarkable, but his character and class on and off the field are also remarkable. Jim Thome has done as much as any professional athlete to reaffirm our faith in what is good about sports and to remind us that good sportsmanship is not extinct, that hard work, teamwork, playing by the rules, even the golden rule, matter. It is not a surprise that a recent poll of Major League players named Jim Thome the nicest guy in baseball. In discussions about recent greatest sluggers of the game, there is some debate about whether some of them will make it into the Hall of Fame. As to Jim Thome, there is no debate, and he is most definitely headed for the Hall of Fame. And when he is inducted at Cooperstown, we will all be proud that he is inducted as a Cleveland Indian. Please welcome to the City Club, Jim Thome.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Thank you very much, Hugh. The only thing I would correct Hugh on, and it just gets my goat, I think Jimmy's number 5 on the all-time home run list. Hugh alluded to it. There are 3 guys that don't count. Hank Aaron's number 1, Babe Ruth is number 2, Willie Mays is number 3, Ken Griffey Jr. is number 4, and then Jim Thome's number 5. In the history of the game, there have been roughly, and I think Mark would know better than me, 17,000 players in the history of the game, and Jimmy is 5th on the legitimate all-time home run list. And I think the best part of this for any of us that have known Jimmy since he hit that first one, which is hard to believe, 20 years ago on a rainy night at Yankee Stadium, Jimmy hasn't changed. And I think one of the reasons for that is, I think people forget. I know Hugh mentioned the fielding percentage. I didn't realize it was that impressive. Jimmy was a good third baseman and typically made an unselfish move to first when we acquired Matt Williams to get back to the World Series in '97. But of all the great plays, the greatest catch Jimmy ever made was here in the front table, Andrea. And I would say because of Andrea, your mom and dad, your brothers and your sisters, that's why you haven't changed in 20 years. They wouldn't have allowed it.
No, I agree. I think, if anything, I think your process of your family. You know, they kind of help you along the way. You know, whether it's with charitable things, whether it's with personal things. And let's face it, I think as athletes, there's always going to be, you know, circumstances that come up where you're always going to need to look to your family. And I'm very blessed, I will say. I mean, the greatest thing of Cleveland to me is that, you know, I was able to be drafted by the Indians and that I met my wife here in Cleveland, no question.
Jimmy, take us back to when Mark and Chris were able to make the trade and bring you back. I know everyone wanted to see you back in an Indians uniform. Was that important for you as well?
It was, you know, and I had always dreamed of, you know, of returning. You know, I didn't really ever know if it was going to happen. You know, when I had left, I left. And, you know, through the free agency process, you make decisions and you know, you live by them. But I think there was always, you know, for me, there was always that wonder, will you ever get a chance to come back? You know, and I think every winter we would sit around and, you know, we'd say, well, what about the Indians? What about the Indians? You know, would there ever be a fit there as that all went through? And then when they had called, it kind of took me off guard, to be honest. To be honest, you know, I had just hit my 600th homer, which was a whirlwind, you know, the process and journey of going through that. And then, you know, having about a week off there, you know, after that, then the Indians claimed me. And, you know, it was really a dream. I remember the first day I walked in, I'm getting goosebumps now. You know, I remember the first day going back into the clubhouse. I didn't know what to expect. And, you know, that night when I walked to the plate and got that ovation was just, it was incredible. It was truly incredible for me that I've been blessed to have a lot of wonderful moments. But that, I think, if anything, I think it put a closure on it for me, you know, to come back.
The thing that was neat to see was in our clubhouse, and all of you fans realized how young this ball club was this year. They were like, you know how the rest of us usually are when we meet somebody famous, whether it's a ball player or an actor or an actress or the president, the Pope, you name it. To see our players on a nightly basis, they were in awe of you, and I think initially that was kind of weird for you, wasn't it? It
was, you know, and it's hard, to be honest. That's hard. I don't think anybody should be in awe of anybody, you know, because, you know, let's face it, we're baseball players. I'm not an actor. I'm not a speaker. You know, I'm just a baseball player. I'm a baseball player that's been very blessed and fortunate to be successful. And I get, you know, playing with Eddie Murray and playing with Dave Winfield and watching their careers towards the end, I get the fact of how to look up to a guy and to be approachable and, you know, and to be on the bench, and when a guy asks you about his hitting, to sit there, you know, I always say, you know, and I said this, you know, it's hard for me because I can't really make a judgment until I see them play, you know, and over time, the nice thing is that I got to really kind of do something besides play as well, and that's to help. You know, that's what life's about. You know, I was blessed and fortunate to have people help me, and then to give that back was very, very cool.
You were what, 13th round pick?
Yes.
13th
12th pick, 13th round.
Okay. But weren't you also playing basketball at the time?
Yes.
At a community college?
Yes, and people find that hard to believe. But growing up in the Midwest, that's what you did. You were a basketball player first. You were you know, in the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, you know, you were a basketball player, and if you were an athlete. And, you know, I realized very quickly baseball was where I needed to be. You know, so, you know, it was a lot of fun. I always look back, and I always brag a little bit. You know, I was a hoop player. I could shoot it a little bit, but, you know, baseball was where I was going to go.
But when you're picked in the 13th round, the odds of you even making it to the major leagues are stacked against you. I mean, I'm sure you played with a lot of guys that were first and second round picks that never made it. Why? Why did you make it, Jimmy? Was it a belief in yourself? Can you take us back there? Was there a point where you said, you know what, I can make it?
I think in Double-A, I would say in Double-A, I started to really believe. I started to believe that, wait a minute, this is happening. You know, I mean, I was fortunate to be in a great organization, and I think Cleveland has done very well at this, at hiring good minor league instructors. And for me, I was blessed to be around Charlie Manuel, Johnny Gorel, you know, the guys, Brian Graham's back in the day. Those guys cared about baseball. They cared about us. And, you know, I had the same dream probably every other kid had. I was just, I guess, fortunate that during that period in the early 90s, you know, we were going through a process where they wanted us to establish ourselves, and they gave us the opportunity. They gave us that opportunity to come to the big leagues and fail, but still grow as players, and that was great.
We all know you as number 25. What was the first number?
59, actually.
59.
Yes.
So that also tells you a lot of people don't think you're going to be around long.
Exactly. But I didn't care. Hey, 59, 89, I don't care. You know, and then that didn't last long. I think I actually moved into number 6 within a week. And I always heard coming up, well, if you get a single-digit number, that's a good thing. So when they asked me to be number 6, I'm like, oh, I'll take it. Give me it. So it was very special. And then I think 25 actually might have happened a year or two later, maybe when Buddy Bell left the organization, or, you know, and then having a lot of admiration for him. And then I think my grandfather wore number 25 as well one time. So that was pretty special.
Your dad was a really good player, but against the king in his court, right? Tell the folks about the king in the court. Eddie Feiner was maybe the greatest softball player ever.
Yeah. My dad back in his day was considered one of the best softball hitters in the world. And back in Eddie Feiner, the king in his courts days, he was the best pitcher. And, you know, I mean, I do believe they had a lot of good battles. I remember my dad being in his 50s, and the queen in our court came through Peoria. And they kept asking my dad, you know, do you want to hit against her? They were trying to get him to play and hit against her. And he's like, no, I don't want to hurt her. I would not want to hurt her. And so they had a thing where they had my dad before pregame sign, all in fun, sign a will of testimony that he wouldn't hit a ball back at her and hurt her. They kind of played it up. And I guess the first pitch she threw in between her legs, and he hit a line drive over the middle, this base hit the center field. So it was kind of, I get on him a little bit about that, like, oh, you still have it a little bit. But he was very, I grew up in a baseball family. Yeah. I did. And my dad was very, you know, one thing about my dad, he never complimented me when I wanted it, I should say. If I didn't do something that he felt was right, he would not compliment me just to compliment me. And I think over time, that helped me. It helped me learn the game. It helped me, you know when I did something well, it was because I did something well. And he was tough. He was definitely tough. And, you know, he's like any of the other old school managers or instructors I've had. You know, they're there to teach you and to help you. And I was very blessed coming up in this organization.
You want to do a little word association with some of those guys from those great teams?
Sure.
All right. If I say Eddie Murray.
I would say legend. He was a legend. I mean, you know, in my time, that I saw, one of the greatest switch hitters of all time. You know, I mean, presence, I would say too. You had great presence. When he walked in the clubhouse, you knew it was game on. I mean, he was there. He was there. When Eddie walked in, you know, you knew we were ready to go.
Albert Bell.
Tenacity. best focus, hardcore player I've ever been around. You know, wanted to win, wanted to do well. And if anything got in his way, he didn't care. He did not care. He wanted to win. And now, getting to where I'm at in my career, I appreciate him even more watching him then. I was young. I didn't know. You know, I wish I would have been where I'm at now, you know, mentally, and knowing what I know in the game back then to really learn from him, you know, because he was as good as it got. I mean, best clutch hitter I ever saw.
Wow. Kenny Lofton.
Electric. I mean, just could light up a room and still does. You know, he charisma. You know, he'd make you mad. He'd make you happy. He'd do things on the field that we'd get mad about, like why are you flipping your bat on home plate, arguing with an umpire the first at bat. But what he did, he drew attention to our team, which we loved. We loved that attention. We loved to be in the spotlight, and Kenny was the catalyst.
Which, coming from you, is surprising because you have always not looked for the spotlight. In fact, you've kind of, I don't know if shied away is the right word, but you've been very humble about it. But you didn't mind the spotlight on that team?
I didn't. I think every player, you know, ultimately when you want to be great, you got to enjoy the spotlight. You know, I mean, I think going through the 500 and 600, for me, what I enjoyed most was from 498 and 598 there, because then it gets pressurized.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's about. That's the, you know, to know that people, you know, and Andrea will tell you, she'll say, oh, I shouldn't have mentioned that, like, oh, you're 2 home runs away or you're a home run away. Like it's the curse, you know, not to mention, oh, you're a home run away. But I mean, that's the fun of it. That's the fun of it. And she's always been, you know, there for me, and, you know, we always have had a lot of fun with that. So
I want to get back to the players, but you mentioned Kenny could tick you off flipping the bat. You had the best bat flip I've ever seen in a World Series against the Atlanta Braves, and it ticked them off.
It did, but we had gotten to a brawl, and they actually threw at Eddie Murray.
Yep.
You know, Maddox threw at Eddie Murray. And then I guess you call it a bench clearing. We didn't really fight or anything. You just kind of go out and you have a little fun. You talk smack, you know, the whole stuff. And then, you know, and then it's like, okay, now we go in the dugout. Now it's really on. Okay, we're in the World Series. The pressure of that, the build-up of that. And I think that home run I hit put us ahead.
Yep.
And to be honest, and I tell people that bat flip was not intended. It was not. It was just emotion coming out. I mean, I could have threw it in the 15th row and really would never have known. But it was never an intention to show anybody up.
It was a great bat.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Carlos Baerga.
Oh, just so much fun. I mean, what a teammate. What a special person. I mean, you talk about laughing, and the minute you walk in the clubhouse, this guy just knew how to make you laugh. I mean, whether we landed in a city, whether we got to the ballpark at 7 in the morning, I mean, this guy just enjoyed life. He just, I mean, I remember we saw him, you know, a month ago there at the end, and you know, he has not changed one bit. I mean, he is a joy and a pleasure to be around.
Omar.
Maybe one of the best ever at his position. Really, really. I mean, and to do what he's doing at his age says a lot about him. You know, he's taking care of himself. Him and I would say Robbie Alomar are 2 of the most fundamentally best players I ever played with, because they knew how to beat you. They knew how to beat you with what they had. You know, when Omar made an error, you thought the world was coming to an end. That's how good he was. You know, he was that good. Opening day, I do believe he made 3.
Yeah.
And I don't think he made another one all year. Or if he did, it was like one more. But he is just another guy with great charisma, joy. You know, I think him and Baerga really brought our team and put our team on the map as far as energy and, you know, and keeping our team active and going all the time.
Charlie Nagy.
Class. Just a class act. You know, a guy that, as my buddies say, you could sit down and have a beer with. You know, and he'd talk to you. He'd look at you in the eye. And it didn't matter if you were from Peoria, Illinois, or L.A. You know, he would sit there and have a beer with you. And he was I mean, what a great person. Just a special guy.
And knowing some of your buddies, the good thing is it wasn't going to be a beer. Not with Charlie.
Exactly. And that went both ways. So that was the fun part. That was the good part. He was just, to this day, you know, you see him succeed there with Arizona, and you wish good things on a guy like that because you know they're going to stick around the game a long time.
How about Manny?
Another one as far as, you know, clutch hitters of all time. You know, could turn the game, could change the game like that. You had great personality as well. He was a guy that, you know, we would, oh, where's your underwear today, or where's your socks, or where's your stirrups? And Manny would have them on. He would have them on, you know, and he was a guy that I think, you know, you always looked over your shoulder because you never knew if he was wearing your BP top. Was he wearing your helmet? You know, he might have grabbed your bat. I mean, he was just very carefree, but what a talent. Honestly, him and I would say Albert were two of the best two clutch hitters, you know, of all time.
And I think the neat thing was this year, in addition to you coming back, to have Sandy there as one of your coaches, because I know what you think of Sandy. Weren't you guys roommates?
We were roommates. He took me in. I mean, I probably am as close to Sandy as anyone because of what he did for me as a young player. You know, how he took me in. I remember he cooked me scrambled eggs one morning, and I think I hit a home run, you know, and I told him, you got to keep cooking scrambled eggs, you know, or something. And now, to say this too, Sandy and I have also had our battles. You know, there was some battles in Seattle in the Kingdom. I didn't cover third, and he come in the dugout, and he kind of, I don't want to say he showed me up by no means, but our competitiveness, we went in the back tunnel and talked a little bit to each other. And, you know, that's part of being friends, but teammates, and what a friend. What a friend. I wish, you know, for Sandy, no question, I think he's going to be a great manager someday because of his presence. He's got great presence about himself.
Did you ever get into a fight?
No.
I remember you
I charged him out,
Riel
but I
Cormier,
did that more
right?
for the team than I did. Yeah, I wasn't going to go out and hurt Riel Cormier. That was not the intention. I did it to kind of end something that had been going on for 2 years. Jared Wright had threw at a couple people, and then, you know, I got hit, and it was almost to kind of, to be honest, to end it. You know, to say, okay, it's over, let's play baseball.
Well, weren't you guys hunting buddies?
Well, Mark Clark, you know, Rial knew Mark Clark, and we had met through Mark, and I mean, we kind of hung out a little bit, and then I played with him in Philadelphia, so we laughed later on about it.
I noticed he didn't really stand there real long when you started.
No, and I didn't, to be honest, looking back, I didn't know how to charge. I mean, you know, I went to the mound, but I kind of was going to go through him. I think when you're really going out to charge the mound, you have to break down and throw punches. That was not my intention.
How about when you speak of those things, you know, Jose Mesa, as everyone knows, was a tremendous closer for our ball club for a number of years, and then Omar Vizquel wrote a book and wasn't real flattering to Jose and everything that went on in the '97 World Series. And honest to Pete, every time Omar faced him from that point on, at least with us, if Mesa was on the mound, he was going to dot the middle of the back of Omar Vizquel. I don't think he ever missed him.
No, and that was the competitive side of Mesa, you know, and he believed in what he believed in. To be honest with you, I never read that book. I never read the book. I just know and hear kind of what everybody else hears. And, you know, I think there was a time when the Phillies came through Cleveland. It was either in spring training or in Cleveland for interleague. And Boa did not bring in Mesa because he knew he was going to have to get another pitcher up because he knew Mesa would hit Omar. I mean, it was just an ongoing thing. It was just a constant ongoing thing. I think he hit him maybe 7 times. Yeah. And again, I mean, why that is, you'd have to ask them. But what a fun team. What a fun team we had with a bunch of competitors.
Jimmy, what was it like here in Cleveland? I mean, it was almost the best of times in everything imaginable. I mean, with the ballpark, with the ball club, with the consecutive sellouts. I mean, it literally felt like there was no way you guys would ever lose at what was then Jacobs Field.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and looking back during that time, again, you know, I don't want to sit here and say I did not enjoy and appreciate that time. I was a young player. I was trying to establish myself with a bunch of great players. And you know, that era, looking back, now I appreciate it so much more. I appreciate what we had and the teams we had and how close we got. And, you know, the players, the Eddie Murrays, Winfields, Albert Bells. You know, I mean, I don't know if you can ever repeat that or get something close to that, which makes that team that more special. But, man, what a time. You know, the 90s here were so electric. You know, wherever you went, you know, it was all about the tribe. And then, you know, we actually went out and did it. That made it so much more special, too, is that it was just unfortunate we weren't able to bring a championship here because we had everything aligned to do it.
Tell us about 600. What did that mean to you in that night to see Andrea and your son and daughter to come out on the field along with your dad, Chuck? I mean,
it kind of surreal. You know, when a baseball game stops, you know, you kind of go, wait a minute, they're stopping this game because you've done something. You've done something really special. And to see your family, you know, and your dad, and have your teammates, you know, at home plate waiting on you. It's a feeling you never, I mean, the one thing I thought of going around first base was my mom, to be honest, because of what she's meant. And it's you knowing how happy she would have been at that time. And then you get to home plate and you see your teammates and your family. And it's just a moment, honestly, that just time stops. Time stops and you want to savor every moment that time gives you. It doesn't last long, but the build-up and the journey to get there was sure a lot of fun. Very stressful at times, but, you know, a lot of fun when you're sitting here talking to you about it to know that I've hit 600 homers. I mean, how could you would never dream of doing something like that.
We're about to open it up here to you folks, but one thing that's always irked me, and this isn't about me, I don't mean it to sound like that, but I don't think Jimmy's ever gotten enough recognition for what he has done because of the era that he played in and because of the guys that took shortcuts and did performance-enhancing drugs. I will go to my grave saying the strongest thing that you've ever had was a Bud Light. And
I've had a few of them, actually, but not many anymore. I guess, you know, to play till you're 41, I kind of realized, well, I better kind of back off the old Bud Light thing. But they sure were fun. Hey, that's life. That's life. But, yeah, I mean, look, I was very fortunate, you know, to come up, again, I say it in an organization. And I think, you know, you make decisions in your life. You know, you don't judge somebody for the decisions that they've made, you know, and when you make decisions that you've made, you know, you feel proud of that. You feel proud of that. And to go through that journey, to get to that point and look at it and go, wow, you know, you do that, you know, the right way was pretty cool.
It sure was. I think everybody would agree with that here. I know we've got, go ahead, Hugh. I think we're going to take Q&A here.
A few announcements and then questions and answers.
All right.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we're listening to a special forum featuring Jim Thome of the Cleveland Indians and Tom Hamilton. We will return to Jim and Tom in a minute for the traditional City Club question and answer period. We encourage you to formulate your questions now. Please remember to keep them brief. We remind you that members and guests alike are welcome to attend City Club forums, and we hope that all of you, if you're not already members, will join the City Club. We welcome all of you here and those listening to WCPN 90.3 FM, WCLV, WTAM, or one of the many radio stations across the country. Our television broadcast partner is WVIZ PBS IdeaStream. Television broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC. Our live webcast is supported by the University of Akron. In 2012, the City Club of Cleveland turns 100 years old. There are a number of events already happening, and we will be actively soliciting support from the community through our campaign for a new century. For information about our forums, please refer to our website, www.cityclub.org, and to learn more about our 100th anniversary events, please visit the 100th anniversary tab on our website. If you wish to make reservations for upcoming programs or order a CD or DVD of today's program, please call 1-888-223-6786 or 216-621-0082. Today is the annual Robert D. Grease Forum on Inspiration, appropriately enough. And it is made possible by a generous endowment gift from his wife, Sally Grease, and the Grease 6 Foundation. Joining us at the head table today are Bob and Sally Grease. Will both of you please stand and be recognized? We are pleased to welcome students who are here as part of the City Club student program. Participation of these students is made possible by a generous grant from the Jeffrey David Epstein Memorial Student Fund. With us today are students from Max Hayes High School, Benedictine Baseball, Brookside High School, Christian Community School, St. Ignatius High School baseball team, and Brooklyn High School. Will the students please stand and be recognized? We're also pleased to welcome all of you at sponsored tables. The names of our sponsors are listed in your program, and we thank all of our sponsors for your generous support. Now we would like to return to Jim Thome and Tom Hamilton for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphones today is City Club Special Initiatives Coordinator Phil Williams and Program Director Carrie Miller. First question, please.
Certainly it's great to see you here today, and thank you for all the exciting memories. I was part of that sellout streak, and I think that's partly why my wife married me, because I had season tickets. But I have a good friend of mine here today, Chuck Murr. We've been involved in fantasy baseball for about 30 years. Can you talk about the impact from a player's perspective on things like fantasy baseball? It certainly helps me connect with the players and keep up with the times, but how does it come from a perspective of a baseball player?
Well, I think what fantasy baseball, football, has done is drawn interest to the sport, which ultimately I think betters the sport, baseball. It gets people more active. I have buddies at home that sit around and play fantasy or football and baseball, and I think what it does, camaraderie, bringing people close together, and let's face it, sports gives us an opportunity in our country to be closer and to be more intact with each other, and it's important. I think it's been I know they focus in a lot on it during the preseason times, and I'll get people that'll come up to me and say, oh, you're in my fantasy, or I'll be on deck in Boston, and I might not get a hit for about a week, and they're yelling at me and throwing things like, why aren't you getting a hit? But that's, that's the fun part of it, I guess. But more than anything, I think it brings, the sport close together with the fans.
Mr. Thome, I want to thank you very much for your contribution to Cleveland, the Cleveland Indians, and the baseball world. But I'd like you to reflect back on the 7th game of the 1997 World Series, one of our Saturdays, and just give us some flavor of that game and how people felt when it was over.
Well, I think devastated, you get so close. I remember, when that game ended, feeling more emotionally drained. Not so much physically, but emotionally drained, because you're the built-up and the hype and you're there, and, you have the lead, and then you don't accomplish what everybody in the city wants you to do as players and organization. We work so hard to get there. And when it doesn't happen, it is a letdown. It is a letdown. And I think that's, for me personally, that's what drives you, I think, to keep playing, is to get that one more chance at maybe feeling what's on the other end. What's on that other end, looking at your teammates in their eyes and dumping champagne. I've dumped champagne, but I haven't dumped champagne and won a world championship. There's a difference. And that's what I think drives you and should drive you to want to get better and to keep going to far as to accomplish that, for sure.
Jim Thome, this organization today has inspiration. And I want to tell you what an inspiration you've been to me and my family. Back in 1999, there was a Giant Eagle opening up in North Homestead. And my mother-in-law was on her deathbed. We got a nurse to come out there, and you met with her and my wife. And I have to tell all the people here, this is what you are to this city. You stopped the autograph session, got Mom. She had all kinds of Jim Thome paraphernalia. Autographed a teddy bear with Jim Thome's 25 on it. Told my wife that you knew that she was dying. Walked with my wife out the building, telling her you're going to pray for her. This is the Jim Thome that many people don't know. And I'm glad to get this opportunity to say thank you for the man you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for coming back, not just to the Indians in August, but to our luncheon today. I've heard several people ask about what plays stick in your head throughout your time here in Cleveland. And the home run in '95 in the World Series always gets mentioned, catching the pop-up on third base against Kansas City in '95. But the one play that I haven't heard mentioned, I wonder if it still sticks with you, is in '97 we were playing the Yankees in the playoffs. And you went to the hole between first and second, I think off of either Tino Martinez or Paul O'Neill, and made an incredible diving stop. Do you remember that play, and does that still stick out? Because as a fan, I thought it was wonderful, so I thank you.
Jimmy just said Paul O'Neill.
Yeah, I do remember it. And that, I mean, the play in that game, I think they had a guy on first base that would have made it first and third with nobody out, and we got the force out at second. And that, I think, will go down for me personally as one of the greatest plays I made. Not that it was a great, I dove and caught the ball, but what it meant at that time, during that course of the game was very, very special, very special. And the pop-up I caught, yes, when we clinched the division was the same. I mean, to see the joy and the excitement was sure a lot of fun. Those are the memories I don't think you ever forget. Thank you.
Hi, back here. I wonder if we can take you off the ball field for a second and ask for some comment about the role athletes play in society large. They're widely admired. Some are disappointing, and some are live up to all the hype. How do you handle that as an ongoing basis as an athlete, and then afterwards?
Well, I think you try to evolve yourself around good people, and those good people will help guide you to making good decisions, to listening to them. You're not always going to make the right decisions. You're not always going to do the right things. But I think if you surround yourself with a group of people that can help you, I always say one man or woman doesn't do it alone. You do it with a foundation of people that you come together, and you got to ask questions. I think as you go through life, you certainly have to, to listen, be able to listen, and to know when to take something the right way and the wrong way. And I've been very fortunate. I haven't done a lot of great things right my whole life. I've just listened to, I think I've listened to the right people along the way.
Hi, thanks for being here. Moneyball's brought to the big screen something that a lot of us have thought about a lot here in this smaller market, and that is money and how it affects baseball. The Yankees have been to the playoffs 16 out of the last 17 years, and yet we have a World Series going on right now with two of the not richest teams in the league. I just wonder, having been through all you've been through and decisions you've made, looking back, what's your vision of how this money thing's going to work itself out? Do we in smaller markets just need to sort of get over it, or is there a different way to go?
Well, I think when you look at teams like Milwaukee, you look at St. Louis, you look at the Cleveland Indians, the Twins are another one. Actually the Twins had a very high salary payroll this year. But I think what those organizations have done is they've put their money into their minor league system. So when guys go down or they need guys to come up, they're bringing up good, solid players of personnel and coaches that are teaching them how to play the game the right way. And I agree. I think in today's game, a payroll obviously can do great things, but also putting it the right way into the system, which I think the Cleveland Indians have done and are in that direction of doing and have benefited from that. The way you looked at, the way we played this year. I mean, there's a lot of good things. Let's face it, everybody would love to wake up tomorrow and say, oh, give me $20 more million. It's a slow process along the way. And I think that's what people here should be proud of, is that this organization, along like those others, the Cardinals, the Brewers, are doing the same thing. And, putting it into your minor league system, you're always going to draft guys like Manny Ramirez, the Brian Giles, maybe myself during that time, that, if you have good instructors, that's what makes good players. And they've done that for sure.
Jim, what does your future hold? The way you played the last month of August for the Indians seems that you still have some baseball left, but we all know we can't do things forever.
Yeah.
And where do you think your life is going to go in the next 10 years?
Andrea's waiting for that answer here at the front table.
Exactly. She always tells me, keep playing, and I do. I want to keep playing, and I'll keep playing. I just have to have teams that call me. That's number one. I can't go play in the backyard by myself. I have to have teams that'll call, and we'll see how the process goes. You know what? I mean, my passion is I want to continue to play. I do. And, I love my family. I do. I have kids right now that are going to be 9 and 4 that are just a joy and a pleasure, I have to say. And then my body. My body, I was fortunate that, the role I was in, I think, everybody says to me, oh, you can play forever. Well, at 41 years old, you can't play forever. You can, under the right circumstances and the right positioning, I think you can continue to play. And I certainly want to do that. I think all that will be answered as the process goes on, during the course of this winter. So we'll see. I know one thing, I sure enjoy waking up and being around my family and getting that opportunity to get in the car and go to my lodge. And there's just a lot of good things right now that are going on that are good. So we'll see. I'm excited, too, about that process, too. After I finish, I think that will align itself as well. I think, when you look at your family and then you look at the business end of things, that it may happen. The game has given a lot to me, and I feel like also I could give a lot back to the game in a positive way. And I do want to better myself, for after baseball as well, and to see what's out there. There's a next journey. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it'll be exciting.
Hi, Jim. When I was 10 years old, I had the good fortune to choose you as my favorite player. And I could have chosen any athlete, and we've seen a lot of bad examples throughout the years of bad behavior. So I want to thank you for being such a great role model. What you've done in the community, people do notice and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Going off of that, is that something that you constantly are aware of your image? Because for better or worse, young people are going to continue to emulate professional athletes.
Yeah.
Is that something that's always on your mind?
Well, I think every decision you make, you ultimately have to ask yourself, is this right or, is this wrong? And you just hope, again, I think it goes back to surrounding yourself around good people. And if you don't think people around you are in it for the long haul to help you be better and to have people around you be better, that's one thing in life. I guess, unfortunately, when you meet people, you don't really know, like all the time, is this going to be a good situation? Is it going to be a bad one? And I think over time you can tell. And having a good wife and good family that kind of to talk to about it and to ask them what they think, that I think is the biggest of all, is understanding, when to make the right decision or when not to. And I've been very fortunate that. Again, I haven't made all the right ones, but I've tried. And I think the bad decisions I've made, I've tried to learn from them and not make them again. To be honest, that's what. If you're constantly making bad decisions, then you need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, "Wait a minute, I got to readjust this."
Jim, you and your wife have been exemplary in the community in terms of charity, and we want to thank you for that. I had a quick question about practice. I know that we talked about you hitting your first home run on a rainy day in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
I have fond memories of the Tribe going late into October and you being at the plate in the snow, snow coming down. So those were great memories. But I had a question about practice, and I think it's a crossover into everyone's life. You go to the ballpark early, like how many hours of batting practice did you do a day? Things like that. What was your average day at a ballpark? When you wake up in the morning, what time do you go? What kind of time do you spend in batting practice? Thanks.
Well, I think it depends on where I was at in my career. I would say early on. I mean, I've always been pretty consistent about getting to the ballpark early. I mean, whether it's some days noon, some days 1:30. I mean, it just depends. And then, knowing your routine. I think that's the biggest thing, is get a routine set, and whatever fits your routine, don't try to get out of that routine. There might be something happen as far as, the organization or somebody wants you're in demand of you, but you always have to remember you're a baseball player first and then try to correlate everything around that. For me, I've always tried to get there, especially now with my low back issue. I get there, I do my program, and then, as the day's going on, I'm thinking about who's starting that day, who the starting pitcher is, what he's done to me in the past, and I'm running this all through my mind. He might have threw me a changeup in this situation, on the 8th inning, a month ago, and I try to remember that. Whoever is on the mound that day, I look back in my mind and go through things that he might have done to me, like Daniel Schlereth the night of my 600 homer. He threw me a sinking fastball inside, and I knew that was not a pitch I could handle. So I eliminated it, and I sat on his breaking ball, and that's the home run that I hit to left field. But I think not only physically do you have to prepare yourself, but mentally, and that's what I've tried to do.
Did you keep a book on pitchers?
No, this up here.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a great memory, but I do remember pitchers, if that makes sense. I can't tell you what I did last week, but at home. But I can tell you, I can remember a way a guy's ball moved coming across the plate, and that tells me, okay, I can hit that pitch or I can't hit that pitch, and I try to eliminate it if I can't. And if he strikes me out, which I've done that about 2,000 times, you're going to fail too. But it's all cat and mouse. It's all a cat and mouse game, and that's what makes the battle so much fun.
Mike Hargrove, Charlie Manuel, Manny Acta. Could you compare and contrast them a little bit as managers?
I think they all are very passionate about their job. You know, obviously as players, managers, you know, everybody has different personalities. You know, what I would say makes those three guys very special is they care about their players. They truly, they get to the ballpark and they want to win, as all managers do, but each of them have their own little ways about them that make them special. And, you know, I spent a month with Manny, you know, and he's a positive guy that cares about a young team that's learning, you know, and I think there's always growing pains, whether it's a manager, player, you know, coaches, you know, where I knew Hargrove and Charlie a little more because I spent more time with them. So, you know, you kind of know their personalities not only on the field but off. You know, I knew when to avoid Mike Hargrove or to avoid Charlie Manuel when they were having a bad day. Not that it was wrong, I just knew when to stay, especially Charlie. I knew when to stay away from him, and then I knew when to get in his ear. So, you know, that's what makes, I guess that's what makes, you know, that unique is learning their personalities and understanding what makes them click as well.
Mr. Thome, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the Major League Baseball is not going through a strike right now, and maybe that's from what people say, maybe that's a yet. Can you talk a little bit about some of the process for somebody who's not part of these conversations? You know, what's your view of the negotiations that are happening with the other major sports teams, and how do you think that affects Major League sports and people's perceptions?
Well, I think if anything, you know, as players, we always trust our union. You know, our union over, you know, think about it, over the long haul, our union has done a fabulous job at putting our, you know, our association in the best position, you know, to do well for the game. As far as the other sports go, you know, I don't know much involved around that in the negotiations, as I can't really get into our negotiations because, you know, it's confidential. And, you know, the bottom line is, I think, let's face it, baseball is a wonderful sport. You know, the fans enjoy it, and everybody wants to see it. And I think you'll see both sides at some point negotiate the right deal and come together and ultimately, you know, make what it is the best sport. I mean, everybody loves baseball in the summertime, and they'll do that. We're confident that everybody will come together. But also, our union has done a fine job at doing what they've done, and we trust in them totally. You know, that's one thing. Our union in baseball is the strongest of all of sports, and we stick by them 100%.
Jimmy, I know you were only with us here for the last month or so, but in visiting with you during that period, you really think this team is very close.
I do. You know, I mean, when I got here, we were very, very good. But, you know, we had some injuries. And I think realistically, you look at the injuries we had, you know, let's face it, I mean, Detroit played very well. You know, you have to commend them. They won our division, you know, I mean, the way you should win it. They went out, they pitched well, they played well. They represented our division very well. Now, in return, you know, being on the other end when I was with the Twins, I mean, everybody looked at the Cleveland Indians and go, wow, you know, is this a fluke? What's happening here? And over time, when you come here and you face their pitching and you see what they've done to their bullpen, you know, it was very, very fun to be on a team that, let's face it, in a year or two could do really, really special things. And I believe that. I do. I think one thing, being around the game, you know when a team is good for a month, and then you know when a team has a chance to be good over 6 months. Mm-hmm. And that was us. We just kind of fell into a position where we got injured, and you know, when you take Chu out of the lineup and Tomlin, who's, you know, very special. I mean, those guys mean a lot. You know, Hafner went down. You know, so there was you know, some injuries that I think knocked us from where we ultimately wanted to accomplish.
Great job.
Thank you.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we've been listening to a special forum featuring Jim Thome. Thank you, Jim and Tom. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.